Welcome to the Doctor Who recap. This video series will attempt to recap every single episode of Doctor Who from the classic era, including lost episodes, to the modern era. The Mythmakers was the first appearance of Katarina, and final appearance of Vicki. Outside Troy, two warriors, who reveal themselves to be Achilles and Hector, are engaged in a long fight. The warriors are so engaged in their battle that they fail to notice the TARDIS materialize behind them. For a protracted length of time, the Doctor and his companions observe the fight between the two men. Eventually, the Doctor decides to intervene. As he emerges from the TARDIS, he distracts Hector. Achilles uses this opportunity to kill Hector, much to the Doctor's anger. Achilles immediately assumes the Doctor is Zeus, citing his sudden appearance coupled with the fact that his presence seemingly aided him in killing his foe as proof positive. The Doctor plays along with this assumption to make Achilles feel guilty about slaying Hector. The Doctor tries to return to the TARDIS, which he refers to as his temple, but Achilles pleads for the Doctor to stay in order to help them seek victory over the Trojans. While they are having this discussion, the Doctor and Achilles are interrupted by Odysseus. Achilles tells Odysseus that he killed Hector, but Odysseus is disbelieving. Achilles tells Odysseus to ask Zeus if he doesn't believe him. Odysseus pours scorn on Achilles' claim that the Doctor is Zeus and marches the Doctor back to camp, claiming that he is a Trojan spy. Meanwhile, in the TARDIS, Vicki and Stephen have watched the Doctor being led away. Vicki's ankle is still injured, so Stephen ventures out alone to help the Doctor. At the Grecian camp, Agamemnon and Menelaus are arguing about the cause of the war. Agamemnon states that if Menelaus had kept control of his wife or fought Paris, none of this would have happened. This discussion is interrupted by Achilles, who has beaten Odysseus to the camp, and informs Agamemnon of his story. Agamemnon is doubtful. Soon, Odysseus arrives with the Doctor. Odysseus mocks the Doctor openly in front of all the men, and claims that he is a spy. The Doctor tries to prove that he has omnipotent powers by using his knowledge of history. He tells Agamemnon that his wife is unfaithful to him, but Odysseus claims that everyone in the camp knows this. Agamemnon is unsure what to do. He cannot kill him if he is Zeus, but he cannot let him walk free if he is a spy. He decides to imprison the Doctor until such a time as a better decision can be made. Outside the camp, Stephen is in the undergrowth, sneaking past guards to try to track the Doctor down. Little does he know he is being followed by a one-eyed man. This one-eyed man, Cyclops, is in the pay of Odysseus and runs to his master to inform him of Stephen's presence. Odysseus tracks Stephen down and captures him. Stephen claims he is a traveler, but Odysseus suspects he has something to do with the Doctor and plans on using him as a way of forcing the Doctor to reveal his true identity. Once inside the tent, Odysseus claims that Stephen is a spy and asks the Doctor if he has ever seen him before. The Doctor says that he hasn't but knows, using his godly powers, that Stephen is a traveler headed to visit his father. Agamemnon is not sure who to believe, but one thing is certain: no spy can be allowed to live. He asks the Doctor's advice. The Doctor says that Stephen should be killed, but only by the hands of Zeus tomorrow at his temple. A complication arises when Odysseus reveals that Zeus' temple has disappeared. The next morning, the Doctor and Stephen go to the plains with the Greeks to find out what happened. The TARDIS has indeed disappeared, but tracks lead off in the direction of Troy. Odysseus claims that this is the final proof that the men are spies. Menelaus calls upon the Doctor to sacrifice Stephen, as he had planned. The Doctor's protestations that he can only do it in his temple fall on deaf ears. Out of options, the Doctor finally confesses that he is not Zeus and that Stephen and he are friends. Menelaus is furious at the Doctor's lies and leaves him to the mercy of Odysseus. Abandoning all pretense, the Doctor tells Odysseus the truth about how they arrived in Greece. In the city of Troy, a crowd is gathering around the TARDIS, which has been brought into the city centre by Paris. Priam asks his son why he is bringing back trinkets rather than seeking vengeance upon the man who killed his brother Hector. Paris tries to convince his father that his spoil of war is an important acquisition, but his case is not helped when his sister, the prophetess Cassandra, says that she has dreamed of a ploy devised by the Greeks whereby they seize Troy by hiding in a vessel which is willingly brought inside the city walls. It is decided that the TARDIS must be sacrificed to the gods by burning it. Inside the TARDIS, Vicki is watching this scene unfold and is terrified to hear that her life is in imminent danger. By this time, the Doctor and Stephen have fully explained how they arrived in Greece. Initially, Odysseus is furious, but he soon reasons that their story is too outlandish to be a lie. He puts the veracity of the story to the test by demanding that they use their knowledge of the future to help the Greeks infiltrate the city walls and seize Troy. Faced with very little choice, the Doctor and Stephen consent. Back in Troy, an altar has been placed around the TARDIS in preparation for its sacrifice. Just before the TARDIS is incinerated, Paris protests. Possessive over his find, he suggests that the gods may not want such an item sacrificed. Cassandra asks the gods to give them a sign if this is the case. Seizing this opportunity, Vicki exits the TARDIS, much to the surprise of the gathered Trojans. After questioning, Vicki states that she is from the future. The Trojans take this to mean that she is a prophet too, which annoys Cassandra. However, Vicki insists that she is literally from the future. Priam seems very fond of Vicki, whom he renames Cressida, because Vicki doesn't sound like a very Trojan name. Troilus and Paris also seem fond of Vicki, but their feelings are of a more amorous nature. Paris tries to engage Vicki in conversation, but he is interrupted by Priam. Priam demands that he leave the city and fight Achilles, a task which he does not look forward to with any considerable relish. Priam and Vicki go into the palace to discuss her knowledge of the future. Meanwhile, at the Greek camp, the Doctor and Stephen are discussing ideas that they can offer to Odysseus for infiltrating the walls of Troy. Stephen suggests the Trojan horse, but the Doctor rejects the idea. He claims that the horse is a ludicrous myth probably invented by Homer, as a literary trope. Odysseus interrupts them to ask if they have concocted a plan yet. The Doctor replies in the negative. The Doctor presents Odysseus with some demands of his own. He will only help Odysseus if he can ensure that Vicki is safely carried away from Troy when the Greeks attack. Odysseus says that he cannot guarantee such protection due to the chaos of war. Stephen suggests that he make the attempt to save Vicki himself. He proposes to disguise himself as a Greek soldier and allow himself to be seized as a prisoner of war by the Trojans. They will take him into Troy and, once inside, he will find a way to liberate Vicki. Odysseus admires Stephen's bravery and gives him the uniform of Diomedes, a friend of Odysseus who had died the previous day. Stephen thanks him and leaves. The Doctor asks Odysseus if he has ever considered flying machines as a means of gaining access to Troy. Outside the city of Troy, Paris is calling for Achilles to come and fight. However, his calls are practically whispers as he desperately hopes that the famous warrior will not hear him. He knows he stands no chance against Achilles and dreads fighting him, but he must at least go through the motions of challenging him to maintain his honor. Much to his terror, his calls are answered by a man in a Greek uniform claiming to be Achilles. However, Paris soon sees that the man is not Achilles and demands to know his true identity. It is actually Stephen, but he tells Paris that he is Diomedes and has been sent on behalf of Achilles to fight him. Paris tries to wheedle his way out of the fight, but Stephen is insistent. The two men fight until it looks like Paris is about to win. At that point, Stephen yields the fight and admits that he has been thoroughly beaten by Paris. Playing up to Paris' ego, Stephen says that he should have listened to everyone in the Greek camp, who told him that Paris was a mighty warrior who couldn't be beaten. Paris excitedly asks if that is truly what the Greeks think of him. Stephen confirms that it is, adding that he will tell anyone he sees of Paris' formidable skills from then on. Seeing an opportunity to improve his reputation in the Trojan camp, as well as a way of further avoiding Achilles, Paris takes Stephen into Troy. In the palace at Troy, Vicki and Priam are enjoying a luxurious meal. Vicki inquires as to how he gets such succulent food. Priam responds that his cavalry often finds ways of bypassing the Greek siege. Vicki seems surprised that cavalries exist in ancient times. Priam states that horses are very important to the Trojans and have a religious significance. Vicki begins to talk about the Trojan horse, but they are interrupted by Paris, who is boasting of his prisoner. Priam is angered by Paris' invasion of his privacy as well as his allowance of a prisoner into the palace, but Paris insists that the prisoner must be seen. When Stephen is brought in, both he and Vicki are so surprised to see each other that they say each other's names. Cassandra, who has been lurking in the background, takes the fact that Stephen is dressed in the guise of a Greek soldier as proof that Vicki is a spy for the Greeks. She calls in the guards and commands them to kill Vicki and Stephen instantly. Paris intervenes to save Stephen and Vicki, stating that Stephen is Diomedes and should be kept as a prisoner of war. Cassandra continues arguing with Paris. However, Priam is impressed by Paris' sudden show of strength. He sides with his son on the proviso that Vicki prove herself to be either a time traveler, as she claims, or a goddess, as some believe her to be, by changing the course of the war either through gained knowledge or through divine intervention. Vicki is given 1 day to prove herself or face death. Back at the Greek camp, Odysseus is putting pressure on the doctor to formulate a plan to infiltrate Troy. Desperate, the doctor proposes his theory of flying machines, modeling his idea on a paper aeroplane that could be jettisoned with the help of a catapult. Odysseus is intrigued by this idea and informs the doctor that he will be first to try this machine out. As a result, the doctor is considerably less keen on constructing his invention. Whilst explaining the idea to Menelaus, Odysseus decides that the doctor should join them. The doctor is reluctant, but has little choice. In the cells of Priam's palace, Stephen informs Vicki of the situation in which the doctor has found himself at the Greek camp. Vicki becomes all too aware that she and the doctor are now both employed by rival factions of the Trojan War. Both have 1 day to help their respective sides succeed or face death. Their conversation is interrupted by Cyclops, who is standing at the prison bars. Cyclops is given a message for the doctor. It asks the doctor to delay an attack for 2 days so they are not killed. Their conversation is interrupted also, this time by Troilus, who has come to visit Vicki. The pair flirt. Troilus explains that he is disenchanted with the world of war and wishes to have a life of adventure rather than bloodshed. When Troilus leaves, Stephen teases Vicki for flirting but encourages her to use her relationship with Troilus to their advantage later on if need be. He adds that hopefully, Cyclops will get his message to the doctor and render such tactics unnecessary. At the Greek camp, Odysseus has rallied his men round to create the doctor's flying machine. Ironically, the doctor now tries to convince him that it is not a feasible invention, as he fears for his own life. Grasping for any alternative, he pitches the Trojan horse to Odysseus, who immediately takes up the idea and orders his men to begin its construction. On the outskirts of Troy, 2 guards are startled by Cyclops. One of them tries to stop him. Cyclops turns and runs, but he is struck dead by the other guard's arrow. Meanwhile, the doctor, Odysseus, and his men have gotten inside the Trojan horse. The doctor is now very uncertain about his plan and tries to find an excuse to escape, but Odysseus does not relent. Soon they hear sounds from outside and see the Trojans start to congregate around the horse. The following morning, Vicki is awakened by a jubilant Troilus. He explains that the war has come to an end and that the Greeks have sailed for home. Priam is hailing this as divine intervention on Vicki's behalf and has declared that her imprisonment is at an end. While Vicki is freed, Stephen is left to languish. Not everyone believes that Vicki is the bringer of peace, however. On being received in the palace, Vicki is met by further hostility and skepticism by Cassandra. Cassandra warns Priam about Vicki, but he pays her no heed. Instead, he continues to celebrate, becoming even more joyful when Paris returns from the plains with good news. He believes that he has found the mythical horse of Asia in the plains and he has had it brought into Troy. Everyone goes to the window to see the sight of the horse just outside Priam's palace. Cassandra continues to rant and rave, saying that the horse is a sign of oncoming doom. Priam and Paris vehemently disagree, and the three begin arguing. Vicki slips away whilst they are distracted. Once they realize that she is gone, they assume she has gone down into the square to see the horse close up. Priam sends Paris out to get her. Cassandra lacks confidence in her brother's ability and sends a handmaiden by the name of Katarina to seek her out. Unbeknownst to any of the Trojans, Vicki slips down to the dungeon and releases Stephen. Inside the horse, the doctor and Odysseus continue to argue. The doctor is looking for any excuse possible to exit the horse early and not get involved in the melee that will ensue, but Odysseus threatens to kill him if he tries to escape. This silences the doctor. Odysseus begins to show his ruthless side, declaring that he does not care if Menelaus and Agamemnon die, as it will only mean more booty for him when Troy is sacked. Stephen and Vicki are in the main square of Troy. They are trying to avoid capture by the Trojans, whilst also thinking of a way to reunite with the doctor. Vicki sees Katarina looking for her amongst the crowd and Stephen suggests they split up. Before leaving her, he warns Vicki that if she cares for Troilus, she needs to ensure that he leaves the city before nightfall. Once on her own, Vicki is soon caught by the Trojans. Cassandra accuses Vicki of releasing Stephen, a charge she denies. It is decided that Katarina will escort Vicki. Vicki and Katarina retreat to the palace where, eventually, Troilus comes to Vicki. Vicki convinces a reluctant Troilus to leave the city and search for Diomedes, protecting him from the Greek onslaught. Night falls and the Greeks in the horse climb out. The rest of the Greek army masses outside of Troy's walls, waiting for the infiltrators to let them in. As morning dawns, Troilus is searching for Diomedes, oblivious to his city's impending destruction. He comes across Achilles and challenges him to a fight. Achilles reluctantly engages in combat with him, and is slain. Meanwhile, the Greeks are in the midst of sacking Troy. Cassandra reminds Priam and Paris that this is the fate she had prophesied. They are soon caught by Odysseus, who slays Priam and Paris and drags Cassandra away, as a prisoner of war. The doctor slips away during the melee. Amidst the chaos, Vicki has convinced Katarina to take her side. She tells her to uncover Stephen from his hiding place inside one of the temples. Whilst Katarina is gone, the doctor is reunited with Vicki. Stephen is discovered in his hiding place by a Trojan warrior. The two men fight and Stephen is victorious in defeating the Trojan. However, he is wounded badly. Katarina finds him and brings him back to the palace. Once reunited with the doctor, they go into the TARDIS, but Vicki does not join them. Before the doctor enters the TARDIS, he is confronted by Odysseus. The doctor runs into the TARDIS, which soon disappears, leaving Odysseus wondering if the doctor really was Zeus after all. Out on the plains, Troilus is looking upon the destruction of his native city. He wonders if Cressida has betrayed them and caused his city's doom. Whilst engaging in his dark speculations, he sees Vicki coming to join him. She perfunctorily explains that Diomedes is safe and that her friends have left her to go back to where they came from. However, she has elected to stay with Troilus. Troilus is initially disconsolate at the loss of his city, but the two soon declare their love. Moments later, Troilus' cousin Aeneas arrives with reinforcements, and Vicki says that this is how it is meant to be, they can build another Troy together. Aboard the TARDIS, Stephen is hallucinating and is very unwell. He is worried about Vicki. The doctor explains that she asked to stay with Troilus in Greece. Stephen loses consciousness. Katarina, however, believes that the doctor is Zeus, the TARDIS is a state of limbo, and that they are all already dead. The doctor assures her that this is not the case. His attention turns to Stephen. The doctor knows they need the right medication to save Stephen and hopes their next landing will provide it.